And electric power is at the heart of another story breaking today. The Prime Minister was asked about the news this morning from Honda Canada. It now confirms it is indefinitely suspending plans to build a $15 billion electric vehicle plant in Alliston, Ontario. So we did hear from the Prime Minister. Let's now bring in the CBC senior business reporter Angie Seth, who's joining us here in studio. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about Honda's decision and then what the Prime Minister had to say.
Yeah, of course, shelving that $15 billion project, the 1,000 jobs that were going to be created by this. There's no jobs lost here, but those additional jobs not going to be created. I want to show you first Honda's statement that they released this morning on this decision, and it reads in part, the previously postponed Canadian value chain investment project has been indefinitely suspended. This decision does not affect current employment or production levels at our existing manufacturing facility in Alliston, Ontario, where operations continue to meet strong demand for Honda Civic and CR-V models. So, again, those 4,000 or so jobs that we've been seeing in Alliston already, those are safe. We're not talking about job losses here, Arthi, but we're not talking about those additional 1,000 jobs to be created. And as you mentioned, that we did hear from the Prime Minister, being asked his reaction on this. Take a listen.
It's a disappointing decision. It's a decision that reflects the broader strategic position and financial position of that company. It's part of a global series of decisions that they've taken. The shift towards lower emission vehicles is certainly progressing globally and likely to progress here. But those are choices of Canadians. Those are choices Canadians will make.
So interestingly enough, if we look at the timeline of how all of this unfolded, and last week we were reporting about this 2-year pause, but if you go back to April of 2024, that's when that big $15 billion announcement came from Honda, this huge investment that they were going to make. They were talking about sort of creating what they call building, I should say, an electric assembly vehicle plant that would be operational in 2028. It would be the first of its kind in Honda. In addition to that, there was the standalone battery manufacturing plant in Alliston, Ontario. And Ontario, so the province as well as the federal government, we're looking at providing some additional funding to this, Arthi. Ontario itself, $2.5 billion in tax breaks and incentives behind this project. Then we go to May of 2025 and we get that other announcement saying Honda's going to pull back a bit and they are going to postpone it for 2 years, over the course of 2 years. And that's what they stuck to when we talked about this last week. And they said it was due to recent slowdown of the EV market. This we are seeing no impact on current employment levels or production at the Honda manufacturing facility in Alliston. So they wanted to reiterate that. Now we come back to today, so where we're at, we're seeing that indefinite shelving of that project. One thing they did note in this announcement, it was no funds that were coming from the federal and the provincial government have been tapped in by Honda. But of course, there is a lot of concern now. What does this mean overall for the auto industry?
No doubt. And, part of that question to the Prime Minister on this decision from Honda was, where do things stand in the negotiations between Canada and the U.S. right now? Because, of course, we know part of that, when it comes to the tariffs, is what has created this really painful situation for the auto industry. So with that in mind, how is the industry reacting right now to Honda's decision?
Well, you've pointed out two really important points here. Our trade, which incorporates tariffs, and our relationship with the United States. And we've seen a year of tumultuous action around that. We've seen those tariffs and the auto industry being hit by those tariffs. We've also seen a slowdown in the EV market when it comes to the United States. The auto industry here in Canada, as well as around the world, sort of banking on that because electrification was sort of the big ticket item where we need to go. But if we saw what Donald Trump did last year in 2025 with the removal of those EV subsidies for vehicles subsidies worth up to $7,500, and $4,000 for purchases of new and used EVs. That sort of changed the market when Donald Trump pulled back on that and removed it. We saw some of the impact we've been seeing on the pullback in the market. Honda reporting its first annual loss of nearly 70 years. We're talking about the tune of $2.7 billion, and the electric vehicle losses there costing them about $10 billion sort of within the EV market. If I could really quickly throw to this clip from Greg Layson with the Automotive News Canada. Take a listen here.
They took a hit on electrification and investments there. They're also taking tariff hits. A lot of automakers are being stung by Donald Trump's tariffs. And so when you're losing money in one sense and paying money out the door in another, there just isn't enough money to continue the investment, the research and development, and the plans and the building of infrastructure such as plants in the electric vehicle segment. So they have to dial back on that.
So that's Greg Layson there. So bigger picture, what does it mean for long-term investment? Canada's going to need to figure out how to pivot. CUSMA, as you mentioned, is going to play a big role in that. A deal right now, we're really not seeing where that's going to shift to. So we're going to watch that very closely.
Okay, thank you for this. That is the CBC's senior business reporter, Angie Seth.